Hello. I think we are missing Nancy at the moment.
What's going on? Can you see me now?
Yes, here we are. All right,
Okay.
we're going to start now. This is, my name is Cali Adams. I am a director at large with the Couplet Fern chapter of Florida Native Plant Society, and I'm here with some guest speakers today to present on land development issues that are being proposed within Geneva in eastern rural Seminole County. And these issues are of great concern to residents and locals alike that like to recreate out here in this area, or people who like clean drinking water. And we have some issues that we would like to present to the public on this. All right. And give me the next slide. So we have a special thanks to our guest speakers. We have with us the president from Save Rural Seminole, Dave Baer. We have from the Geneva Citizens Association, Nancy Harmon. We have Bear Warriors United, Katrina Shadix, and Gabbie Milch from the St. John's River Keepers. And please remember to subscribe to the Couplet Fern YouTube channel, and also consider joining membership to our chapter, as the monthly memberships every year or every month is grateful to our chapter. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. So we're holding this webinar today to bring awareness to this issue. On Tuesday, there is a Board of County Commissioners hearing in Seminole County for a ski lake resident community being built or proposed to be built in Geneva. And so we have two organizations with us today that both filed $1,000 appeals to have the development order heard in a public comment. So that will be this Tuesday. And approval of this community could set the precedent for more development proposals and zoning changes in the East Rural area. And it's disguised as a ski lake, but this project is a way for sand mining to be done without oversight and regulatory processes for mining borrow pits. And it's very dangerous to do on sensitive lands. And with us, we have our speakers who would like to share their inputs and information for the community to understand why we are opposing this, and help inform the community as to what it's at stake for protecting. And so for this, I would like to ask Katrina, would you like to explain a bit about the appeal and reasonings, and anything you would else like to share about this?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having all of us. It's a very important issue. And to go, well, a little background on me, I'm the executive director of Bear Warriors United. It's a nonprofit agency, a nonprofit org that I started several years ago in response to the bear hunt that Florida had. And at the time, I was bitter enemies with the FWC, which is the regulating state agency that allowed the hunt. And now I work very closely with them on different things that save bears. Besides just stopping a hunt, we can save bears by securing our trash. So I think with the way I like to bridge the gaps between absolute adversity and the agency that's regulating certain things that make us upset, I hope that we as citizens can bring that same kind of working together and at the county level, because at the county level, we're seeing the same things. It's not a bear hunt, but we're seeing the decimation of our natural lands. We're seeing a disrespect of the citizen voice. And we need to work hard together, which is why this is so great today. We need to work hard together to get on, to have open communication with our elected officials, for them to respect our will, because a government is supposed to be of, by, and for the people. In Seminole, we've had a lot of problems over the years. We fought hard on a few things. They've listened to us. Hopefully this will be one of those things. But it is, as you know, as y'all know, I paid $1,000 to file an appeal. And mine is based on the environmental damage that a borrow pit will do. And this is, you know, if I go back 5 years ago, I didn't know what a mitigation bank was. Well, I didn't know what a borrow pit was till about 2 months ago when we found out. I'm like, what the? And I was calling it a borrow pit, B-U, you know, with a U, not an R. So it's a borrow pit, and it borrows dirt from one place and puts it in another place. And I think it's really important that we put all of these technical terms that we're going to be talking about today into layman's terms. Because just like I said, I'm an educated person. I have a college degree. I didn't know what a borrow pit was. So if we keep that in mind when we're talking and, you know, trying to relate this problem to the people that are watching, if we can put it in the most layman terms as possible, I know I would appreciate that as a viewer. But like I said, we found out about this borrow pit, and while I oppose it on a moral and environmental ground, there's something that is more disturbing. Well, I wouldn't say more. The environmental damage is extremely disturbing. But the fact that this environmentally damaging item can bypass our county commissioners and not have any public input, that, to me as a citizen, that is extremely concerning. We don't want this to go through because it's going to set a precedent. If we let this go through and we let staff sign off on this borrow pit, Seminole County is going to turn in to a county of 1,000 borrow pits. And if we want to bring in the political part of it, as y'all read in the paper probably recently, the main goal of, I think, the developers and the county is to just blow up with development, the Sanford Airport area with a bunch of development. So what do they need to make development, and what do they need to make new highways? They need dirt. So how do they get dirt? They do borrow pits. So I think this, and this is, you know, I haven't confirmed this, but my thoughts are, this is the nose under the tent, the camel's nose under the tent. This is the first borrow pit. And if we let them get this through without strong opposition, you know, it's going to set up the county to do expedited, you know, processes for these developers to get borrow pits, which I think are going to be contributing to the overdevelopment, the further overdevelopment of our county. And what's interesting is the developer who applied for this development is the same developer that owns all the land around the Sanford Airport that they want to put massive amounts of high density housing in. So if we make those connections, we can make a lot of assumptions, and, you know, we may not ever be confirmed by the development that our assumptions are correct. But, you know, a lot of times, like we always say, follow the money. And that's what we've done, and which makes this extremely concerning. But on the environmental end, my appeal does bring out the, you know, what's going to happen to that area if we dig out a bunch of dirt. And like I said, to put it in layman's terms, we have a lot of wildlife traversing through that area, and we're going to put 10 to 40,000 dump truck load strips through that area where wildlife go through. You know, what's going to happen there? It's going to be completely fragmented. The populations that are on one side of the borrow pit are not going to make it to the other side. And that's just one thing. But we can defer to Gabbie to talk, because I love experts. And Gabbie's an expert on water and borrow pits. So I'm an expert at saving wildlife and knowing what endangers wildlife and knowing what endangers environment. But we need experts like Gabbie and scientists that back up our assertions, which are in the appeal, which I don't want to read to y'all today, but, you know, happy to answer questions. But it's just about this borrow pit it's completely opposed on every level of environmentalism. But it's the process by which it was approved that concerns me as a citizen of Seminole County. And I'll stop there.
Oh, you're fine. I agree completely with you on that. As I'm a resident out here too. I'm environmentally minded, and it bothers me knowing when I drive by that area, I see a gopher tortoise, burrow that's right along the fence line. So the wildlife and the plant life, it's all very important to me too. So I very much agree on that. We will get on.
I was going to tell you, I don't know if anyone else has gone out there, but I actually went and looked at the property. When I first found out about it, I went to the address, and there's a big gate there. You can't get in. And I put a couple stop the Geneva Ski Lake development signs on the property outside, and the property owner got pretty mad because he, of course, wants to sell their land. And what we don't want to do is block people from making money. People have their private property rights. Yeah. We want them to make money on their land investments. However, they have a moral obligation, not only to their neighbors, but to the environment. Make your money, but do it the right way. We want to encourage ethical capitalism, and this is the opposite of ethical capitalism. But anyway, I ended up meeting the people who have the property just a little bit north. It's Equestrian Quest. And we went and walked along the line, and they are going to be right up next to where those dump trucks are going out. And my goodness, I don't see how the county commission can disregard the quality of life for just those few people. I just think that's a disrespect to humanity in itself, but their quality of life would be decimated. All of those trucks, all of the noise. Like I said, there's going to be no more peaceful horseback riding for their quest. So their business is going to go away. And is it okay to support one developer and let him profit while these people that have been here forever with their small business and with their quality of life, is it okay to let them suffer and pay the price for this guy who's just going to dig up some dirt, make his $7 million and hit the road and go dig another dirt pit? That's not okay. I think, like I said, the moral obligation here is, what needs to be stressed to the property owner, to the commissioners, because there's good people living out there, and they're very concerned about what this could cause to them.
I agree. It is disrespectful to the longstanding residents that have been there for generations, I'm sure, and to do anything that would impact the stable would really do something to the rural character out here.
Oh yeah,
there would. So, Nancy, if you're available, I would like to ask your input on for your appeal as well.
Okay, let me follow up a little bit on what Katrina said. The one thing is why, when this project was submitted when it was created, it was in August of 19, and it was created to be a rezone. And the rezone clearly showed that the burrow pit was going to be there, and 15 houses, and they would be smaller lots. And they were doing it under a PD, which the staff told the applicant specifically that they would not approve it. They're just like, nope, that won't happen. We can't approve that. And so they did offer to the applicant the option of a cluster subdivision. So that's the way the applicant went. About the same time those conversations were happening, the applicant filed in SunBiz and created 2 LLCs. One is Lake Moran LLC, and the other is Sand Mine Geneva LLC. That's an indication to me exactly what this project is. One of the owners one of the primary persons that are a part of the LLC is a sand pit mega guy down in St. Cloud. He has a huge land development company that has lots of burrow pits, and he supplies dirt throughout Central Florida. So to me, it's like, can I smell a rose? Yeah. Does it smell like a rose? Yeah, it does. I think it's a burrow pit. So that tells me that when this happens, should this be approved, as Katrina says, we're going to see more and more of it. Richard Creedon has said the same thing. So I believe we really have to be careful to not underestimate the power of money and use of friendships, not necessarily within our board. I'm not saying that our BCC, but what I'm saying is statewide, community-wise, there's a lot of people that we have no idea who are depending on dirt. One of the individuals that I communicate with has a neighbor who's a developer, and he basically told her that this this borough pit was going to be essential to them. They need it. They need dirt. They need dirt to build. So that's the one thing. The other thing is the reason that Geneva Citizens Associations filed the appeal was first because we tried to talk to the county, and our representative, Commissioner Zimbauer, and staff, and we were basically told because we didn't file an appeal at the P&Z, then we had no options. Well, of course, I'm ignorant to the process, which I'm learning now a lot more about, and I had no idea we could file an appeal, and nor did they tell us, and nor did they ever at a P&Z state at the end of a P&Z or at the beginning of a P&Z, if there's anybody that has a problem with this, they can file an appeal, and here's the process. So anyway, during the conversation on August 17th, 2020, we were told by Rebecca Hammock, and I was grateful that she offered the information because clearly nobody really was offering it, that we could file an appeal to the development order. So we had to wait for the development order to be signed, and as soon as it was signed, then we put our process together and we filed an appeal. Now, what is our appeal on the development order? Our appeal is stating that the development order, which is stated that it complies with the comprehensive plan and the land development codes, and was requiring that of the developer, is not in compliance with the comprehensive plan or the land development code. And the reasons are, first, that under a cluster subdivision, you cannot take the land that you don't use for a lot, which is given as what I call a gift, so that a developer or a property owner can actually utilize less land to build the homes, the total number of homes that they're allowed on that piece of property to build. The concept of the cluster subdivision, which is what they have applied for and they're saying that they're doing, is that when a developer or a property owner has land that they can't completely use because it has wetlands, in the case of this property, it's 50% wet, and it has to be in a conservation easement because it can't be built on its 100-year flood plan. I say it has to be a conservation easement. They don't have to do that. They don't have to do that if they choose to build 12 5-acre, or if they choose to plat 12 5-acre lots, which would have one resident per lot. So the total number of 5-acre lots would be 12. That's allowed on that property. Using the cluster subdivision plan, they are allowed to build 12 lots, or to create 12 lots. And within that 12 lots, they are not required to use all of the lot for a resident, but they must use at least 1 acre per residence. And according to the cluster subdivision codes, it requires that the balance lots, or the balance land that is not used, which is part of the net buildable, goes into open space. So effectively, let's say you have 60 acres. In this case, they have 60 acres. They're going to use about 24 for lots, which leaves about 28 available, because that's the balance of land that if they would have built or laid out 5-acre lots, that would have been available for those 5-acre lots, if that makes sense. So that 28 acres, 30 acres, I'm going to say plus or minus because every document I see is a little bit different, but that's open space. And open space means that it is to be maintained as it is, or it can be used for agriculture and
Nancy, do we still have you? Does anybody else hear Nancy?
No.
Crap. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Okay.
yes,
I'm
I
having
think we
trouble
lost
with
you
my
for a minute
internet.
there.
And I tried to switch to my regular service, and I lost everything. So anyway, to make the long story short, we are grieving the development order, which was, and we are not appealing anything with regards to the applicant, which is what it appears that the county is purporting, and that is what's being purported for our meeting on Tuesday. We are appealing a decision that was made by the development service manager by signing a development order that we believe does not meet the comp plan or the land development code and other codes of the state. So that's the reason why we're filing. We do not disagree with cluster subdivisions. It is an option that's allowed. But we say, if you're going to do that option, you give that land back and you make it open space as it was set forth to be, if in fact there were 5-acre lots.
Yeah,
And then the other part of it is the burrow pit. As Katrina was stating, the staff has found a way, they believe, to weasel in removing 400,000 cubic yards of dirt. The DRC meeting that was held in January, which I have the MP3, if you'd like to, anybody like to have it, just let me know. It clearly states in there, I mean, the DRC meeting with the staff and the applicant, they talk about the burrow pit. And at what point the applicant says, the representative of the applicant says, if you make us follow the rules of the burrow pit, we will make this whole project a burrow pit. I think it's pretty clear what the intent of this project is.
I agree. It does seem loud and clear, doesn't it?
It does.
Dave Baer, did you also have something that you wanted to add in on this?
Sure. Somebody had asked where in the audience asked where is this, and so this is just on the southeast corner of 46 and 426, and so you know where that is geographically within the confines of land development and the long-term plans for Seminole County. Yeah, what's particularly important about that area is, you know, not just what you can go and see when you're there, like Katrina was, and you said you see the gopher tortoises and the horse farms, but it's within the area that's called the rural boundary. The rural boundary is a zoning designation that was put into place in 2004, you know, by referendum vote of the citizens. The citizens voted for this rural boundary to be put in place to protect the eastern portion of Seminole County from unbridled growth and sprawl, which have been seen everywhere else around Orlando and many other places around Florida in the country. So it's a mechanism to protect this sort of unbridled growth from happening, to maintain sensitive lands, which it was deemed that this area is. And so what we're seeing here is an effort to basically get around that designation that the citizens determined should be there. You know, we all saw a very direct affront and fight on this in Rivercross, and the developer is losing that. And so this is similar, just in a different guise. So sort of with that background, you know, Nancy was talking about the Geneva Citizens Appeal, and Katrina was talking about, you know, the burrow pit. You know, the burrow pit, a burrow pit is a very serious thing. And that was recognized by the county when the county redid their code back in 1992. When they redid their code back in 1992, there was a whole chapter dedicated to how do you get permission to do a burrow pit. And so the appeals are not just based upon this is a bad idea, which it is. This will cause, you know, horrible damage on the to the wildlife, which it will. This will cause horrible damage, you know, to the water supplies in the Geneva Bubble, which it will. But it doesn't follow the code. So it's very simple. Section 5.7 says that if there is a project that removes 10 cubic 20 cubic yards of dirt from a property, they have to follow Chapter 65. And candidly, all the appeals are asking the applicant to do is follow that chapter. That chapter includes all sorts of requirements, like you have to go in front of the commission for an up or down vote on whether you can get a borrow pit, meaning you can't go, and do something, behind the sheet like they try to do here. All sorts of other procedural requirements. They just have to follow the rules. That's all we're actually requiring them to do, or asking that they be required to do.
I definitely agree. Thank you for giving your input on that. So with it being within the rural boundary, this isn't something that we want nor need because of the protections that it put in place. And so I prepared this slide with some nice little artwork that I sourced from Miss Katrina also. So it was established in '91, as Dave went over, and it includes all of Geneva and Chiliota, or not all of Chiliota, but a good majority, and it protects the environmental resources that we have out here, the aquifer in the recharge areas. There's many wetlands. So when you drive through the area, if there were a straight line going through the rural boundary lands, you would come over hills and you would go into swamps, and you would go through pine forests, and you would see so many different varying habitats. There's no way to think that all of the area is just one similar habitat. So there's many different kinds that need to be protected, and they all have different resources that we can use. Like, say, the sand, it can be responsibly and ethically sourced if done in a more ecologically aware way. The water is our primary resource that we need to protect out here. So the aquifer and these recharge spots, unfortunately, the recharge spots are where the sand is preferred from. So it protects, the area from being overused. It protects the wildlife. We have many endangered and threatened animals and plant species in the area. It's a very biodiverse hotspot. And then there's the rural character. Is when you drive through, you pass cow pastures and horse ranches, plant nurseries, and organic farms. There's people that do farming out here that they provide to the local markets. And ruining the area with overdevelopment would be an issue for the rural character of this area. And Jennifer Webb says that the property is right next to a series of lakes, and there could be a problem of water from the existing lake could dangerously impact the surrounding properties. So yes, when you start digging out, you end up affecting the lands around you. And we have another slide that we will go into that a little bit more. I guess we can navigate to the next slide. This one will go into the ski lake. So we'll talk more on the damaging effects of digging and the effects on wetlands with this. We went over a lot of these details already about the proposed plan being 12 lots of 1 to 3 acres, and it's sectioned off from the total being 114. Half is wetlands and half is uplands, and the remaining acreage after the development will be the open space ski lake, as we have already gone over, of like open space being not clear on the use of being a ski lake. I think Nancy will have something to add more in on that. So it's to be dug in an upland location right above the bubble, and it's a recharge area. And there are the areas surrounded by slash plantations. So that is also another. Silviculture is big with the rural area around here. If you drive through, you see lots of pine forests, and they're in the straight lines. That those are the pine trees that are used for lumber. It's a resource that we greatly need. So I wanted to ask Nancy again about the open space issue. If you could reiterate on what the concern is on the lake being used as open space. And then afterwards, Gabbie, I'll ask you about the water table issues for digging upland and affecting the water table. So first, Nancy, do you have anything on the open space first? Do we have Nancy? Okay, well, Nancy, let me know in the chat when you're able to add in. Gabbie, let's go ahead and talk about the water issue being affected if we dig and affect the water table.
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. And I've come in good faith effort to speak on behalf of the public and clean water and the legal water users of the area and a healthy environment. And I see that Nancy's back, so if she wants to go on with that point, I'd be happy to wait until she adds in her point. You want me to?
Yes.
Okay,
Sure.
no problem. Go ahead, Nancy. We were ready to go, and then we lost her. She may be back. So, part of what I did when I learned about the borrow pits and some of the excavation is the Geneva Bubble is a very important sole source aquifer for a lot of people. And I got some statistics today that Geneva and Chuliota has a population of about 7,000 or so people that live in that area, about 3,000 in Geneva and a little bit under that in the Chuliota area. And the highest elevation is 62 and some is like 80 feet. But in researching the USGS quad, their reports, there's a critical area of about 25 feet, the elevation, and that's kind of where the bubble sits in the under the ground. And because Geneva is so special, it has on one side Lake Harney, it has behind you the Econ, then it has the Lake Jessup area, and then it has the St. Johns River. And all of those areas have higher salty water in them. And so this bubble is very important, and it can get smaller and bigger based on rainfall because it's the most effective recharge area. And it really is like a priority protection zone that the county and the water management districts should be preserving. The ecological harm there, if you can see how close that borrow pit is to the adjacent wetland there, I have some concerns if they didn't do their hydrogeology that the bottom of the pond, the pit, the borrow pit will be lower than the wetland, and it will actually dewater the wetland and it will cause harm over time. If they excavate and they have water in the pond, because it may not have, if they didn't do the studies to see if there was during the high time after rain, how high the water levels are there. So also pressure of adjacent people's wells could be affected. If you have a shallow groundwater well and you have some salty water in it at certain times of the year, saltwater intrusion could be a huge issue there. The dewatering of the wetland can also change the pressure as well as the pit under the ground of the way the water, and it generally flows towards the St. John's. So there's probably maybe about 4,000 wells or so in that area that could be harmed. I haven't got that specific number. And then of course the water quality aspects of it is all the runoff from the agricultural areas that is there, and then some of the existing issues. So talking about the salinity and getting people's wells tested would be a really good idea before they do this borrow pit. And I haven't talked much about the development. So I see Nancy's back now.
Okay, thank you. let's go back to the map. And if you can, in your mind, see 12 5-acre lots on that land, okay? Which means there's a lot of land that would be available for people to do their landscaping businesses. They could do their nurseries. They could do organic gardens. They could do organic farms. They could have horses, cows, pigs, goats, all right? Now, when you see this the picture that we're looking at right now, that land that they could do that on has been reduced by the ski lake. And the reason it has been reduced is because the ski lake proposal is not following the code, which would require that space to be given back to those landowners for them to use to promote agriculture and to maintain agricultural land, which is the requirement of the cluster subdivision provision, as well as part of the comprehensive plan, which is purpose for to maintain a rural lands in our area. When you go back and you talk about the rural boundary, the purpose of the rural boundary was to do just that, was to ensure that we have agricultural land. Agricultural land doesn't have to be reused right at this moment. Agricultural land can be used 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But the purpose is for having the rural boundary is that it's available and it's going to be provided for a long time to come for anybody who would choose to have that kind of a business lifestyle and be offered the opportunity to have wildlife coming into their areas. So without that land, what you have is nothing to support the purpose of the rural boundary. It kind of goes away. What you have there is now just an urban subdivision that has some kind of a pit and 12 houses that are located on 1.5 to a little less than 2 acres. It's an urban subdivision. It's not a rural subdivision. It doesn't allow. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
It doesn't allow for where that lake or the ski lake would be. If you would note, on the north end of that hooks into Equestrian Quest. Animals traverse that spot. They come through there to get down to the bottom part of that lake, and then they go down over to Snow Hill, and they get to the wilderness area. That's their path.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, and with that being disrupted by people on it and possibly pollution because of any kind of waste that could come from a vehicle, a water vehicle, or just pollution that would come from too much overgrown plants that are not maintained in the whatever that could be, because I doubt that it'll ever fill up with water, to be honest with you. But what happens there is that the whole aspect of the value of that land goes. It's gone. It's done. Mm-hmm. And the more important thing, though, here is that when the county gives a developer the option to do a cluster subdivision, the developer agrees to give back the balance of the net buildable land to be open space. An open space as defined by the development code, which basically is for nature, grasslands, farmlands, trees, every aspect that we see out here in Geneva right now that people ride around and see. That's what it's for. So we lose when the county doesn't require a developer or property owner to do their part and their share by giving the land back to Geneva, giving it back to the area that it is supposed to be provided for.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So it acts as a bit of a greenway. These large tracts of land that are left mostly natural or planted with pine forests and left for ranch lands. Wild animals traverse that area to get from point A to point B. So to the north of this area is Lake Proctor, and then to the east is the St. Johns River and the Econ river basin, of course after some properties and stuff, but the wild way of these lands is that the animals use those as greenways. And so with my next slide, I have some aerial images to show the kind of habitats. So this one is a south to north look of where the lake will be dug. You can see the open, bare, sandy spots where it's going to be, the sand will be excavated from there. And that is gopher tortoise habitat. That is all kinds of animals use the scrub habitats for their needs of food and shelter. And the next picture will show another angle that is looking west to east, and you can see Lake Moran in the background there. In the foreground, in the bottom left corner, is the little rectangular area that will be divided up into 5 lots. And there's 2 little spots of scrub in there too, and that's along the fence line where I have seen the gopher tortoise. So there's gopher tortoises in there. It's habitat for them. The next picture to pop up will be that one. It's in the middle of where the lake will be dug. That's prime gopher tortoise habitat right there. And then I have another picture to come up on this. It will be the contours. It's a little hard, at least, to see on my screen, but I know it starts at 60 to 50 elevation at the north end, and then down as it goes south, it dips down and then it comes back up again, and it's 65, 50, 55 feet elevation there. And it's high recharge area and high value to wildlife. And you can see by the aerials, it's mostly wild and animals can traverse through there. And then we will get to more of the water issues in another slide. Next, we will come up on the water, or the Carter Ski Lake, which is another ski lake that is kind of piggybacking on the hopes of, coming in after this other proposal being approved. That's what we're thinking. So no detailed plans have been made for this property, so I could only just pull up the parcel and basically what the layout of the land is. So it's all wetland. It's smaller. It's 35 acres, and it's deep in Geneva off of Osceola Road. The neighborhood is Settlers Loop neighborhood, and in between Bee Lane and Sutton Place, or Sutton Lane, or Stafford Lane. That's it. It's deep in there, and having another ski lake being dug out for a small, narrow community for 3 houses would be kind of removing the character. There's hardwoods that are in that area. In the aerials I'll show, you can see it's a cypress head, which is good filtration for the water. So the potential buyer wants to clear the land and dig a 30-acre pit. So the property itself is 35 acres, and they want to dig a 30-acre pit. Call that open space ski lake, and build 3 residences on the eastern end of it, where it's kind of higher on that side. And this just, it would not be good to approve, because this is very low-lying land. It's dense with native flora, and it's also another area where animals cross through. It backs up to a power line easement, which animals notoriously use those as a greenway to get through green places. And I'll go to the next one where we have the aerials. Try to get through this Carter Ski Lake one. So the concerns with this one is the water table. On this slide, it's kind of also hard to see. It's an aerial from the property appraiser's website. Basically, the property sits at 20 to 25 feet elevation. To the south of it is higher. It goes up to 45 feet elevation just to the south. So this area is a seepage where water will collect. But they want to dig it down, and when the bubble is 20 feet below the surface and this place is at 20 feet, you can't imagine that they would have to dig down very far to get to it. I'll show the next pictures here. You see the cypress head. This is a 3D image. You can see the way that the land looks with cypress and then the marsh. And then another picture shows better the way that the water moves. So on the left side, which is the north end, they've cleared some of the land, and the water finds its way to go down towards a neighbor's property that I didn't include in the photo, but also seeps into the cypress head there. So this is a natural water filtration spot. And Gabbie, I wanted to ask you about some information on cypress heads and the filtration of water that goes, from there to the St. John's from that.
So the wetland functions, of course, it water flows through and the organic bits are dropped out, and sometimes in the middle of a cypress dome you'll see sugar white sand too, because of the way the water elevations. And the wetlands are very important for recharge as well, and they also provide habitat for all the wildlife and some of the macroinvertebrates too. So they're important, and I don't know how much soil you could get out of a wetland unless they know it's all sand, if they've done soil borings or something.
They haven't done
I can't
anything yet.
get one. Does anybody else have any input on this one?
So I can comment. So, the Carter Ski Lake, obviously that's not what's at issue in the hearing on Tuesday, but I think it's a really important topic because it shows us why Tuesday's hearing is important and why it's important that we not allow this to happen. So if the borrow pit / ski lake project is allowed to go forward, we don't have to imagine what the future holds. We've already have a preview here by this sort of sloppy application that this Carter Ski Lake did. Yeah, that will not be the only one. There'll be many more because there's lots of money to be made in harvesting the natural resources of the Geneva area in the form of dirt and sand and using that elsewhere. And this isn't harvesting in a way like Nancy mentioned that it'll grow back. If dirt doesn't grow back, it's gone forever. The hydrology and the water flow issues here, since we're sort of on that topic, I think are important to note in regards to the lake borrow pit that we were talking about before. The reality is this is never going to be a lake. That's just a sales pitch that they're putting out there in their effort to get around the code and the requirements. And we know that because of the land features that were described earlier. So where this lake is, it's on what some people call the Geneva Hill. So it's 50 feet of elevation, and surrounding it is sand going down, to Lake Morand on the east, and underneath it is a clay, type of substance, but probably not as much to confine as they want to tell people. So what's going to happen when the water from the rainwater flows in, or water from any source? It's not going to sit there. It's going to move horizontally, out to the adjacent lands. And so I was talking to one hydrologist, about that, about what's going to happen here. And he said that seasonally the water levels will vary from a pool to a puddle. Their claim is this is going to be a 15-foot lake, so you can ski back and forth. It's utter nonsense. It'll never be anywhere near that. It'll be a pool to a puddle, sometimes even completely dry if we're in a dry season. Them sitting up there and saying it's going to be one thing, and them having people that have alphabet soup letters behind their name who they paid to give an opinion, claiming something is going to be, doesn't make it that way either. The laws of nature, geology, physics, tell us what's going to happen, and it's going to be a pool or a puddle.
Agreed. Yeah, I am very concerned on that too, is when you start messing with the hydrology in one area, it's going to mess with it in another area. It's always a never-ending thing. So with the next slide, we'll go on about the water some more. Like I have a visual here to show what the bubble looks like. And I learned from this that my property is kind of right on the teetering edge of it. So it was interesting to learn this. So the lens is 26 square miles in size, and it's like kind of bean shaped. It sits between the St. Johns River, the Econ River, Lake Harney, and Lake Jessup. It's completely surrounded by salinated water. All these water bodies around us have levels of salt in it that makes the water not safe to really live off of. So that's why we need this bubble. We need this freshwater lens that sits on top of that. And so because of the way, salt water is denser, is heavier, so it's going to be underneath. But when we overdraw too much, or if we dig in and we lose the fresh water that's there, we're going to have the upwelling of the salt water come in. And so the issue of digging into scrublands, you remove the recharge areas, and then you remove the water, and then we have the salt water. So that's why this is such an issue. And then with another consideration about the Geneva ski lake on 426 is that it's a man-made lake in an upland area. And from some of the studies that I read in the research for this webinar is in agricultural areas like what we're in, upland lakes that are man-made, they have a false bottom if they do put in a bottom, and then it harbors phosphorus, and the phosphorus can run off out of the lake, or it can recharge through the sandy soils and go down into our aquifer, and that would absolutely poison the well for everybody. We can't have phosphorus showing up in our water, drinking water, or in the water that we recreate in. We all need the water, absolutely. So Gabbie, if you have anything else to add on this one, and then we'll go kind of down the line of anybody else who wants to talk about the water some more.
So typically in a borrow pit, if you look at state rules, how they were at one time, if you dig soil out and you remove it, there has to be some type of a reclamation and reclaiming that land and contouring it and planting plants there to protect from erosion. And there usually is some kind of a bond put up that in case they go out of business during their, that time period. And then there's other checks and balances that the state and the water management district have used. And they have to come up with a plan and do a report. And then when they start excavating, they have to do water quality monitoring. And so these are some really important aspects of monitoring what they're doing if they dig these ponds. And the replanting, it depends on the contour. And if it's a ski lake and it's only 15 feet wide, you said?
Deep.
They have to have a littoral zone. So the side slopes have to, be able to provide a habitat for the plants to grow in. So the wetland plants, emergent ones. So I have some worries about that, that you guys, and then the most effective recharge area in the Apopka area for the Wekiva, they require additional stormwater. And I did read in the development order of the one pond, there was some about they had to excavate a pond to dewater into. So that was another pond that really didn't show up on the map. And I don't know where they would get the soil to fill that back in either. So maybe you want to take a look at that. So I'm just concerned about saltwater intrusion and definitely, the perching of the bubble.
So if I can build off something Gabbie said, what she talked about, there being requirements for when you build when you dig a borrow pit, you have to do all this reclamation, you have to follow all these steps. Absolutely. It's in the Seminole County Code in the road. It's 65.8, specifically accounts for all those steps. Seminole County knows all this and requires all these things to be done if a borrow pit is being dug. Like, it's a responsible chapter. We just have to make them follow it. This developer is attempting to bypass all those very important things that Gabbie mentioned. those aren't just Seminole County things. Those are requirements throughout the country, for digging a borrow pit. And this person wants to do all of those money-making activities without following through with all these safeguards that need to be in place and that our government needs to protect us with.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Katrina, did you have anything to add about the bubble? Because I know you're a long-term resident of out here. Anything to add?
Yeah. First of all, I want to know, are we in 1990? Because I didn't realize ski lakes were in such high demand. Water skiing is decreasing the way that golfing is. So I think this just reinforces the fact that this is a sham. The ski lake, these applications for ski lakes are just the excuse. It's the cover up for the borrow pit. And if we think it was in Lake County, right now, the Lake County commissioners are suing because of an illegal borrow pit that allegedly the dirt is being illegally sold for the Wekiva Parkway, if I'm correct. And I think, and y'all can correct me, when that borrow pit was started, the developer said it was going to be for blueberry farms. There's no blueberry bushes anywhere. There's not going to be any ski lakes. And if people want to ski, I mean, if we look on the picture, I see a big old lake there, big lake, there's a river. Like I said, the whole ski lake thing, it's a whole 1990s trend that we do not need, do not want. And, but to do this, and like I said, we have our scientists, our hydrologists, our experts like Gabbie, who can go into the environmental damage of digging a mining pit over the Geneva Bubble, which has for 30 years been documented by every newspaper in the area as being completely essential, protected, and it's the jewel of Seminole County. We cannot mess with this. So that it's gotten this far is very concerning, that the developer picks somewhere over the Geneva Bubble, the most protected part of the county, to get this through, is especially concerning. But say he were, like all of us here, I love everyone doing all of, standing up for the environment and wildlife. Saves me the time to do that, because I would gladly chain myself to a tree on this property to stop the construction. But for those people who aren't like-minded like us, we have a lot of people on income, just Social Security that are, COVID. We've all been impacted financially from either COVID, reduced Social Security benefits, losing our jobs. So when you put a monetary value on this, what's going on with a lot of developments, but would happen with this in particular is the county would be allowing the privatizing of profits, but socializing the cost. We will have to pay for everything to fix the water supply for Geneva if this developer is allowed to dig this deep and allow the saltwater intrusion. Thousands of people in Geneva won't be able to drink the water from their wells. And we, as the taxpayer, are on the hook for millions and millions of dollars to fix this problem. So, like my granny always said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. To prevent a catastrophic hit to our local, general revenue, to fix this, the simple thing is to not allow a borrow pit over the Geneva Bubble. For the record, I am strongly against a borrow pit anywhere in Seminole County, but especially over the Geneva Bubble. Borrow pits, I think, are great for, you want a borrow pit? Go to the Sahara Desert. Get all the sand there where you're not going to interrupt an ecosystem, where you're not going to, destroy the drinking water for thousands of people. It's absolutely preposterous that it's gotten this far and that the staff was allowed to sign off on a borrow pit permit. This, like I said, for the people who don't care about the environment and wildlife, they care about their wallet, they care about their budget, they care about their financial future. And this will devastate our budget for the county. Our taxes will be increased. And that alone is a wonderful reason to not only deny this permit or to, but we need to change the process. it shouldn't be allowed that staff can issue a borrow pit permit. And if this is the process, then that needs to change. Policy needs to change. And I think going in long term, we look at the policies that brought us to the point where we are today. Definitely need to change. Our county commissioners campaigned on promises to protect the rule boundary. I will be absolutely astonished if they do not honor our appeals. But I would love to see them change the policy where nothing like this can happen again. And a lot of people have brought up to me that they want to, at Tuesday's meeting, bring up to the commissioners that they all took money from this developer. And me, listen, there ain't anyone that would love to bring that up more than me. Because I did run without taking developer money, and that's extremely difficult to run a campaign without taking money that's offered. But I think I'm speaking more strategically. If we tamper down our anger about the apparent corruption and the apparent connections that our commissioners have to developers, if we just kind of put that on the back burner and get through next Tuesday, I know I would appreciate it. And I'm not telling anyone definitely not to bring up. If you want to bring it up, bring it up. But I think if we give certain commissioners a chance to be our heroes, a chance to keep their campaign promises, and we go in knowing that they are being seriously pressured behind the scenes by this specific developer, I think it would just be more strategic if we did that and not call out the commissioners for taking campaign donations, because at this point, what's it going to do during this? Like I said, in the future, if we want to do that, but for this, I would love for them to make a decision and like I said, be our heroes, make a good decision, and sort of feel like we appreciate them and the power that they have to deny something like this. Like I said, I'm all in for a big old fight down the road, but for now, if we could just please give them a chance to be our heroes, give them the chance to do the right thing. I'm hoping that they won't disappoint us.
Yeah, I hope so too. I agree.
Quickly, there was a comment made about changing the code so that we don't have to do this anymore. And certainly there's dozens of ways that the code can be changed to provide more protections. But candidly, at least GSA's appeal, and I believe Bear Warriors United's appeal, is simply asking for the commissioners to make a determination that what is being proposed here and is included in the development order is a borrow pit, and therefore has to follow the procedures and substantive requirements of Chapter 65, which would require any borrow pit to go in front of the commissioners in a public hearing and ask for an up or down vote, which I don't think commissioners are ever going to vote for that. So yeah, more protections would be great, but if they were to grant the appeal on Tuesday, then that would include a determination that this is a borrow pit, and I don't think we have to worry about this again.
Sorry about that, guys. I had a technical issue again. All right. Are we on? Okay. So here, I'm sorry that I missed that last bit, but I wanted to go talk about the Geneva Freshwater Lens Protection Act, which I wasn't even aware as a thing until doing research for this project. And it is that the legislature put in law that the Geneva Freshwater Lens is the single source water supply. It's unique, and we absolutely need it. So it's a valuable water resource for the citizens of Northeast Seminole County and in general to the citizens of the state. And that the lens is a precious natural resource system vital to the health and diversity of the regional ecosystem. And it is the intent of the legislature that this resource be protected for future generations of citizens of the state, and that the St. Johns River Water Management District implements the laws of the state and administrative rules of the district to that end. And I see that the laws are in place, and I see that some things be followed, but most of it doesn't seem to be. And that is where we are calling it out and saying this isn't right, and we are going to hold you accountable. This needs to be followed through the checks and balances system that is in place for a reason, because the reason is this is our livelihood. This is the people who live here need water. People who live on the outskirts need the water. There is a water, they source water for Sanford for here, and you know, children from Chiliota, you know, are bused over to Geneva Elementary, and they learn about the Geneva Bubble. Just a couple weeks ago, Geneva Elementary's 5th grade class was doing experiments for them to understand more deeply about it. And so the Protection Act says in it that it is to be protected for future generations. And the future generations are already learning about it and are already caring about it. And the intention that we have with this, and to keep it going, is to motivate the parents that heard about it is, well, we need to care about it. We need to see what these issues that our children are, you know, learning about the basics of, and now we see what can affect that, and that, you know, you want to pass your acreage down to your children when you grow older, and your children want to continue living in Geneva. What are they going to do for water in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? That's a big concern that we have. Another thing that we wanted to go over is conservation easements is the next slide to go over. So we're running a little close on time, so I'm going to try to wrap this one up. We have a few comments to add in on conservation easements as well. So it came up last month in a Board of County Commissioners meeting that they were considering removing conservation easements from I believe it was from the comp plan. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So right as it is that there are plots of land that are owned and maintained under the HOAs and subdivisions that are meant to be buffers between the human neighborhood's impact and the natural environment. They can protect wetlands, uplands, karst systems, which are caves, and sensitive habitats like a sandhill or a scrub, where rare and endangered species are located or reported living. In these conservation easement areas, anything to be done has to be first approved by the county, whether it is removal of vegetation, be it alive or dead. If it's overgrown, you have to get approval for it. No dredging and filling, and any construction is limited to only doing 4-foot wide boardwalks through the area so that it can be accessed and used as an open space, natural area meant for the conservation as it is. So the next slide, it goes, we just don't understand why that they would want to remove conservation easements. At least I don't, so I put this together. It was said during the November board meeting that sometimes wetlands change over time and are of no more value. And it's no doubt that they change when expansion and impacts happen, and it's slow but steady, takes a long time. It would poke many holes into the protections in place. And we love here, and we live here and love living here because it is Florida's natural choice. And if we keep digging holes into it or skirting corners, I mean, how authentic is the rural boundary anyways? So I believe Dave and Katrina, both you had something to add in on the conservation easements. Dave, would you want to go first, maybe?
Sure. So this was really troubling when it popped up on our radar that this was coming in front of the commissioners on a consent agenda item, which means they're expecting to just sign off on it, no discussion, it flows through. And we learned about it, a couple of us, and we raised red flags, and we got to take it off the consent agenda item because this is something that at the very least deserves a very thorough look and some revisions of what's in here. The way it's written right now is just really asking for abuse. Builders who want to capitalize on land that is valuable to them, but they're going to be discarding conservation that has been put in place, and candidly trampling. We hear the other side talk about property rights a lot. Doing something like this would be trampling the rights, or at least interest, of nearby residents who bought homes near these conservation lands, relying upon that being in their backyard. When you buy a house and you're told, oh, there's 15 acres of conservation behind us. Like somebody that wants to live nearby that, like, great, that's why I'm moving here. And you have no expectation that that 15 acres is going to be, bulldozed in the future because you're told it's conservation land. And so the idea that can just be taken away is really bait and switching the people that live there. Furthermore, there's a bunch of problems in here. The ratios, it does include a trade. So if the county is going to give up, say, 1 acre here, the applicant has to buy a certain number of acres over there. The ratio was way too low. It didn't provide really notice to people that are nearby. Just like a lot of these development projects, the person making the application, puts forth their own expert opinion. I propose a number of revisions to this if it were to pass. I don't necessarily think it should ever pass, but if it were to pass, you need to have a third-party opinion coming in here rather than the builder's own paid-for opinion as to whether the lands that are being bought are as valuable as the lands that are being given up. Again, not that this is actually a good idea, but if it's going to happen, it's got to be in a way that's a lot different than what was being proposed, which just doesn't have enough safeguards in it, anywhere near enough safeguards.
Agreed. Thank you. And Katrina, did you have anything to add on it?
Yes, I agree with Dave 100% on that. And Dave, I don't know if you brought up that you did send in some revisions to some suggestions to the county.
I'm not just talking, like I redid their amendments to 30.25 for them, redlined and everything. So all they had to do is press accept. I don't know what they're going to accept or what they're not going to accept, but if it comes back up and it doesn't include the different recommendations I made, it means they chose not to accept it affirmatively. So I handed it to them on a dish. We'll see what they do.
And my point with the removal of conservation easements is that's a non-starter for me. A borrow pit is a non-starter. Removal of conservation easements are a non-starter. I'm probably the hardest core on this removal of conservation easements. Frankly, I'm shocked at Constantine for suggesting this. I was astonished he would be the last person I thought. And what we need to know here is that this isn't an either or. We don't have to remove existing conservation easements to get new conservation easements. And anyone who tries to convince us of that is playing a great little shell game for our developers. We do not have anything in this county that gives us a set number of conservation easements that are allowed. We don't max out at 100 or 200. We can have as many conservation easements as we want, as they decide that we need. So the idea to remove less valuable conservation easements for more valuable conservation easements it's a lovely shell game. It's been played all around Seminole. And like I said, I'm shocked and disappointed that Constantine would bring this to Seminole County. And I can give you a little idea. When Ken Buchheit and I were fighting City of Orlando on the Wekiva, they were trying to destroy Wekiva headwaters for us for Princeton Oaks development, or Princeton Oaks industrial warehouse. They, what they did, well, mitigation plays into this conservation, but let me tell you what they did. They had a conservation easement behind a piece of property so they developed this one piece of property. And before they developed it, they said, okay, well, since we're going to destroy this, we're going to create a conservation easement right behind it as kind of the mitigation. So the mitigation is the other big shell game and farce that we have to deal with. And so they built what they wanted to build. They had the conservation easement behind it. 5 years later, what happens? A developer comes, asks for that conservation easement to be removed, which St. John's Water Management granted it. And then the city of Orlando said, okay, you can build here. So removal of any conservation, like I said, it's a non-starter. It doesn't have to be done. We don't have to do one with the other. We can have our cake and eat it too, as far as conservation easements go. The more conservation easements we have, the better. And it's easy to do. We need to stop this in its tracks. If hopefully they're going to listen to Dave's list and incorporate that. But it kind of shows a pattern of commissioners giving us false choices. Well, we can only have this if we have this. That's not true. We can have them all. We can have all the conservation easements that they can give us. So, and the thing about the mitigation is you see a lot of developers being told, okay, you have to mitigate this damage. You're going to do damage to this over here. So to mitigate that, go ahead and pay into a mitigation bank or a piece of land that's going to be saved forever. And as we've seen with Split Oak Forest and them trying to put a highway through it, what they say is forever is not forever, and it can be removed with just 3 votes in Seminole County. So when I talk about changing policy going down the road, we need to get our commissioners to keep their campaign promises to get that super majority vote. And there's a lot of things that can be done. And like I said, just if we can just get through Tuesday, we have a lot more work in Seminole County to do, which obviously is going to be this conservation easement issue. And, I love everyone I see on this web and everyone's support. And we have a great little army to go into battle. And I appreciate everything that is being done by all of y'all. And hopefully we'll be successful. And I know if we're not, we're going to go down fighting. But I'm giving our commissioners sending out a lot of positive vibes to our commissioners that they do the right thing Tuesday and for the next few months going forward, so we can get some really good, solid policies in for Seminole County for saving our environment. I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. And did we also have comment from Matt Morgan also, Katrina?
Yes, Matt Morgan is on. He's the Longwood City Commissioner, former mayor of Longwood, and there he is. Hi, Matt.
Special guest.
Hey, guys.
Surprise guest. Welcome.
Thank
You for joining us.
Hey, guys, I just wanted to say, holy mackerel. Holy mackerel, how informed you are, and what a great job you're all doing. To Nancy Harmons, the David Bears, the Katrinas, Gabbie, Cali. What you guys have just put on here is amazing. And how you guys are not sitting on countywide big-time boards for zoning and planning and so on and so forth is beyond me. Thank you for your passion. Nobody pays you guys to do this. You do this because you're passionate about standing up for the right thing here. And I brought some of my Longwood residents on, and they're going to watch this later on once this is loaded on YouTube later, to watch at a different time, maybe a day from now, I believe. And you ask yourself, why would the western side or the central part of Seminole County care? Because this is the thing we're supposed to be marketing our county with. This is our green space. This is what separates us from Orange County and our other neighboring counties for that matter. And you guys hit the nail on the head, all of you that are on this chat, with this is a very slippery slope that we're in front of right now. And this is not let's be clear, this is not a borrow pit. This is a flat out money pit. All right. And like Katrina said, you want to do that? Cool. Do it somewhere else. Do it in someone else's backyard. Don't do that here, especially on a very, very protected and people are very passionate about protecting that rural boundary area as a whole, and the whole eastern side, quite frankly, of Seminole County. I've taken my kid there. You guys have all taken your kids there. There's nothing like it. It's what separates us, like I continue to say. And just as a resident, forget as an elected official, screw being an elected official, as a dad, I thank you guys for continuing to be so passionate and protecting this. And I want to, while I'm on here, I want to give a shout out because we have Oviedo Mayor Megan Sladek watching, who's a big part of this as well, and protecting this, as well as Altamont Springs Commissioner Jim Turney. Like I said, the work that Nancy Harmon has done, Katrina, David Bear, you guys, it's coming over toward our part of the county. All right, it really is. It's paying dividends. So please, I know you might not get that pat on the back, you guys, a lot. But I'm giving you one, a big, huge 7-foot one, because I'm very impressed by y'all. And you guys, it's definitely a ripple effect that affects every single one of us in this county, especially those that want our kids and our kids' kids and generations after us to be able to have this real last big piece of green space that we do have here in the county. What's about to happen here, guys, is a very, very slippery slope. You just watch. Katrina's right. Ski lakes, guys, come on. They could do that somewhere else. They don't have to do that there. But I just wanted to be on here to support you guys, and you guys need more elected officials supporting you guys. and I'll be doing that and then some. So thank you guys, sincerely.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for that so much. It's very relieving to know that we have the side of the residents from the other part of the county too. Thank you for that.
We definitely do. Definitely.
Awesome. All right. So I think that concludes pretty much the majority of our informational part of this, unless anybody else has anything else to add. Katrina, Nancy, Dave, or Gabbie?
I just want to thank y'all for having this today. And I'm encouraging people to participate in the public hearing. It's very important stuff going on. And thank you guys for caring, because it is very important. And thank you, Nancy and Katrina and Dave, for all you do. And everybody too.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll just add, so, you guys have spent an hour gaining a lot of information and becoming a lot more knowledgeable. And that's great because you care about it. But when you care about something, you're going to do something about it. And the way that everybody that's listening here can do something about it is to write an email to the commissioners about this, sign the petition about this, and or show up on Tuesday and have your voice be heard. Have your voice be heard in an articulate, passionate, fact-based way when you express it to the commissioners. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because they want to get reelected. And the more political pressure they see will come down upon them come election time if they don't act in the community's interest, but instead act in the financial interest of one person, the more likely they are to do the right thing. So that is your opportunity to have an effect on the long-term nature of Seminole County, to show up on Tuesday and let them know that you're watching, listening, care, and you will act on this in the future.
Thank you. All right. So thank you all for joining us with this presentation. We're happy to take any more questions if there are any from viewers. If we have any comments from viewers on anything we might have missed. Did they have to comply with the St. John's Water Management District review?
Can I chime in something on that? So,
Go for it.
yeah, they would have to get it approved. But the reason I really want to chime in on that is because, I'm a lawyer, so I keep going back to the rules. And I've talked a lot about Chapter 65 is written for borrow pits. You know, one of the conditions of Chapter 65 is when you apply for a borrow permit, when you have your borrow permit application, with it, you must include the St. John's Water Management approval. You have to have that ahead of time.
Oh, before.
The commissioners review it, and when the citizens read about it and review it to give our feedback to the commissioners, we already know what St. John's said. So it's a great question, an ironic question, because they should have already have to have had it if they're complying with the rules that are already written.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up since we've been going quite a long time. This has been about 2 hours, it looks like. Oh, let's address when the tree canopy is removed, impacts on soil and erosion. So you take away the canopy and it alters the way that the rainwater will hit the soil. And with sand, that will erode and it will find water. Water will always make its way, so it will carry anything with it. So the erosion will go literally downhill. So anybody downhill from a cleared area, the water will just go right downhill to them. I could be wrong if anybody has anything else to add on that with soil erosion. Is there?
So basically what you're saying is the water will go down and erode the lots that are being set aside for development. In addition, it will go and it will erode to the neighbors on the south side, which face off of Snow Hill Road and Old Mims Road, because they're connected to the wetland.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an impact. There's probably going to be an impact because flooding is flooding. It'll be flooding.
And lots of Geneva knows all about flooding. And when you mess with the water in one spot, it will find its way to the next spot. So, all right, to go ahead and wrap up then, I would like to ask if you would consider joining us on Tuesday at the meeting. Lots of us will be there with our green shirts and repping natural Seminole County. And the hearing is held at 6 p.m., where we will be there for meeting on the Geneva Ski Lake. That's the one that's on 426. And please don't forget to subscribe to the Couplet Firm YouTube channel to catch the video after we've gotten it recorded, because not only if you miss it live, it can be viewed any other time afterwards. Also consider during this holiday season to make your donations to any of our organizations that are involved in this project. This is the Couplet Fern chapter of Florida Native Plant Society, the St. John's River Keepers, Bear Warriors United, Save Rural Seminole, and Geneva Citizens Association. All of us have put in a lot of work and a lot of time and energy into fighting these issues and informing the public and just doing what we can to help save Seminole. All right. So I think that puts it all up then. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for helping us out, and I look forward to Tuesday.
Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.